right, we're going live. I'm going to share my screen. I've got to mute this out so there's no feedback. Mute out my other screen. Okay. Okay, got it. This meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. Welcome. The topic of this video is going to be birth certificate, hidden meaning, legal concepts, and history, Q&A. Okay, so before we get started, I like to share my screen. That's why I'm using this Zoom software. So let me see where share screen is at. So there we go. Like to share my screen. Okay, there we go. So once again, thank you for joining. This is Dorsey's Resource. I'm back again with another awesome video. The topic of this video is going to be on the birth certificate, hidden meaning, legal concepts, history, plus Q&A. So just keep that in mind. First, as usual, before we get started, this video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information. These are simply my opinions on the said topic. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Keep in mind, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. And any affiliated groups out there are indemnified from any type of liability. This is Dorsey's Resource opinions independently. And please keep in mind, once again, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. All rights reserved. Now, getting into the topic, I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. There's a lot of information I have. I want to go over some of the basics. I was contemplating on deciding to call this like a beginner course, but I'll probably have to save that for another time. I've been doing a lot of research lately. Throughout the years, I've studied multiple different processes and procedures from advanced practitioners that study this type of information that I refer to as redemption education. By the way, if you look up the definition of redemption, it means to redeem or to overcome, by the way, which a lot of things are related to that, by the way. And also, I forgot to mention, well, I want to give a shout out to all my subscribers. I want to thank you, those that continue to follow the channel, those that continue to support my work. Recently, big shout out to Currency 365 once again for the super thanks. That video was removed, by the way, but I still did get the blessing in the comment section, something new that YouTube started called super thanks. So I want to thank Currency 365 for that. I received another one recently. I hasn't come in my back office for YouTube, but I hopefully will acknowledge that person in my next video. And more recently, big shout out to Melanie Lynn. The consultation was awesome last weekend. Big shout out to you and the work that you're doing. It was good speaking with you. It had been a while since we met. I remember you very well from the TDA movement. For some years, I had been meaning to reach out and I totally forgot. And I just want to give a big shout out to you and all the subscribers down the road previously that have supported the channel. By the way, either set up consultations, donations, you are appreciated. So this is an exhibit. I wanted to go over to tie in how the birth certificate is connected to, it's a form of a securities instrument, by the way. Some may refer to as bond certificate. This document, I'm gonna scroll through, it has like some templates. This information appears to be scanned, so some of the information may appear to be faded out. There's a lot of definitions in here. I'll probably get to that later, by the way, but I just wanted you guys to see a visual. This is why I use the Zoom software to be able to share my screen. Here's an example of the instrument earlier. This is, I actually had a friend that mentioned to me, if you guys can see my screen, says American Banknote Company. By the way, there's a connection with the meaning, and I have a document with me that I'm going to go over some of the history, the legal concepts. This actually comes from Jordan Maxwell. I took some notes from many years ago. There's a DVD that he has. I'm in the process of looking for. If I can find that DVD, it was given to me many years ago, but this goes over like the basic information, by the way, because there's a lot of newbies, and I'm seeing a lot of channels that are popping up that I follow that are discussing even the basic information. Myself, I would consider I'm at an advanced level, and I'm still, I may get to that later, trying to get certain documents done. Some of my documents that I filed many years ago, different processes have expired. I have to renew something, a procedure in particular. But like I said, that for the time being, that's neither here nor there, but it's related to this information, by the way, and correcting one's status. Some may refer to also as status correction, by the way. So I want you guys to see, this is a visual, says American Banknote Company. There's a process that everyone's certificates of live birth go through. There's a process when they're born, or the majority of US citizens that are born in hospitals. By the way, this would apply. I'm going to go over this document. Now, some things on Fidelity changed. I'm going to get to that later. I heard more so recently that Fidelity locked up part of their site. You still may be able to access it, because some people out there already knew how to access their own QSIT numbers, because there's an advanced process. If you know how to get access, there's some things that you can do down the road, by the way. And I haven't got to that level yet, but I know a guy I've known for many years. I have a source, actually two different sources. There's a lady I know as well. I won't say her name. She gave me a connect with her source as well that can get QSIT numbers as well. But this one source I've known has been doing this for a while, and he actually showed me his own some years ago. I was amazed, because a lot of these brokerage companies, as you guys already know, a lot of major corporations are borrowing off our credit. They're trading off the lingus. That's the legal terminology for what some refer to as the straw man. The estate is an organization that comprises multiple entities, by the way. But the proper legal definition, look up the legal term, it's Latin for lingus. That would describe the decedent estate. The estate is the voice. The straw man is the voice of the estate, or what people refer to as. And there is a definition for straw man, by the way. That Cracking the Code broke that down, because what some judges or lawyers have tried to use to try to make it appear that this information is not legitimate, they have what's called plausible deniability. You have to look up the definition of plausible deniability, where they can act like they don't know what you're talking about. It's like a legal maneuver, but there are ways when you become very proficient with your terminology, and you can invoke some powerful procedures where they have to show the matrix. By the way, that gets, I won't get into that. That's even above my pay grade, or the level I'm at. But there are advanced levels, and keep in mind. So without further ado, to get in more into the topic, we have at the top, it says Exhibit G, birth certificate directions on how to find the banknotes associated with the birth certificate number, and the legal definition of a certificate/warehouse receipt. Yes, it is also referred to as a warehouse receipt. As you guys saw, the document I showed earlier very briefly, I'm going to scroll down. There's another template where it had said American Banknote Company. Now, I have a private source, by the way, who told me privately, this is a confirmed story. He's mentioned this to me privately on multiple occasions, but he experienced from a private group that we used to study under. There was a guy's birth certificate. I don't know if this guy that he referred to was a member, or just came as a visiting guest of the private meetings we used to attend many years ago. But he stated that he saw a portion of this guy's birth certificate where it said Department of Commerce at the bottom, where there's a part where they cut off on the majority of people's birth certificates or certificates of live birth. Certificates of live birth are generally the long form, maybe referred to as the abstract copy, the microfiche. Generally speaking, I discovered many years ago, a private group that I studied under. I was one of the first to bring this to their attention many years ago. I was a researcher and discovered there were two different types of birth certificates. And I found out years later, one is referred to as a stock certificate versus the other type. By the way, I have to talk to my elite source. He can actually clarify better. He's more knowledgeable than I am in those particular areas. And I remember, but I was also credited with the large group when we first started learning about this information many years ago through word of mouth by invitation only. I discovered from my own birth state, Ohio, when I sent out for a birth certificate many years ago, and I originally went through vital statistics to have it mailed, I noticed the second time I received a totally different version from the first copy that I had. I thought was my main birth certificate. It was like a basic form. And I discovered the other one also, the certificate of live birth is referred to as your long form. So you have a long form, short form version, generally speaking. Now, some states I've heard from some people allegedly only had one version. Of course, everyone's situation is unique. Some people were born on certain time periods, so their situation may be different because some people were born before they started the process with the Social Security Administration. When I attended this private event many years ago, we had to learn the history that actually involved dealing with the Social Security Administration and the Securities Exchange Commission, the creation of that, by the way. So just something to keep in mind, by the way. So I just want you guys to see this as a template. This is like basic, like a John Doe copy. I'm not sure where this was scanned. It appears as though this document they received. I won't spend too much time. It does appear like that this was a live or actual person, but from what I'm assuming, this is a John Doe copy somebody scanned many years ago. This is an actual template that I have. By the way, some other people out there have the same template as well. By the way, I'm looking for, there's some people also refer to as the birth certificate as the articles of incorporation for the charter, similar to like when you set up an LLC and you have to look up the history, how corporations come out of charters based out of England. There's history behind it. There's a connection, but I can get into without further ado that this is a historical aspect that goes back. I'm still gathering more information. Like I said, if I can find that DVD that expounds on more information, what I'll attempt to do is upload that to my YouTube channel. It's very powerful, but I took notes. The concept of the birth certificate, when it parked at a dock, a ship, by the way, because we're dealing with Admiralty Maritime, it comes from a concept called birthing. Credit to Jordan Maxwell, and rest in peace too. I found out he passed away earlier this year. His nickname was the Godfather as well, not to be confused with Kevin Samuels. But there was a historical researcher, alternative historian. He studied astrotheology, eschatology, by the way, some would call conspiracy, stuff like that, along with other historians back in the day that were friends with him, such as Michael Tessarian and others, where they had stories that were featured on the History Channel or major networks. He'll be greatly missed, but a prominent researcher. I credit these notes that I took off of Jordan Maxwell's research, by the way. So this concept comes from birthing. This happened many years ago when a ship came into a port coming onto water. The law of water is, he's mentioned, dealt with banking law. This is why the Statute of Liberty had to be put on water, because of Admiralty Maritime law. It's not the Statue of Freedom, as people think, but liberty is what a sailor gets when they pull into a port. For example, like in the Navy, or when an airplane comes in, there's terms similar to how the court system uses legalese. They get liberty. And see, we're tricked. Many of these words that we use have dual meanings, have a totally different meaning in a court system. And some of you all are familiar, I know, with David Windmiller that talked about syntax grammar. That's a whole nother complex subject that's very in-depth, but very informative, that breaks down how they use trickery with this English language and how the court system, we should have been learning. That's why I mentioned we should have been learning legalese in elementary school and middle school. We should have, so we would have an advanced start. That's how the court systems, while they have an advantage over the average person in the general public, doesn't understand what they're engaging in. When they mention that they're going to charge you and things dealing with bond, they're actually charging. It's connected to your SSN, which is attached to your birth certificate, by the way, which are forms of securities instruments, the forms of registered security. So once again, this is under Admiralty Maritime law. It's not the Statue of Freedom, the Statue of Liberty. Liberty is what, once again, is what a sailor gets when they pull into a port on a ship in the Navy, for example, which is actually privilege, where you ask permission. So if they say yes, then you have the liberty. This is what Jordan Maxwell explained. And he gave an example. Let's say if you have a son or daughter, when they become of age and they say, hey, mom or dad, can I borrow the car? I like to go to the mall. And they ask permission. And if the parent, mother or father, based on if they say yes, that doesn't represent freedom. They ask permission. So we're under the impression that liberty means freedom when we're not actually free. And there's a play on the words where you don't want to be free and dumb either. We're free dumb. We want to be free, by the way. So I learned some of these concepts many years ago, and I actually taught this in one of the classes that we did. One of the few times they had me speak many years ago, I was one of the youngest people at some of these private meetings by invitation only. I went over this same information in front of a group of people at a private location. Back then, we used office buildings, different cabaret halls, churches, different places of that sort where we would meet at. They would move to like different locations. I went over this information back then just to let you all know. It's been a very long journey. So I'll continue further. So once again, liberty is permission. It's he also mentioned privilege. It's not freedom like what people think. It's permission. It's if they say yes, then you're granted something. So he also said this ties in with Admiralty. Admiralty is military. A maritime is law of the seas. So when you purchase or buy something, that's why they say they're going to ship it to you. Like when they ship something into the mail. This is tied in with these concepts that deal with banking and merchant law, like mercantile exchange, by the way, these concepts. And let me see if there's some more information. So money, which is connected to this, is water law. And he mentioned this is why when you buy something, they ship it to you. You know, a lot of things come through the trucks, even though you may purchase things physically in the store if it's close to you or in person, but it's sent by ships on the water, by the way, in many cases. So he said, the captain of the Port Authority many years ago, he said, captain comes from the word capital, which means money. This is a connection. So the captain of the ship many years ago, this is where the concept of the birth certificate is derived from. Once again, when a ship parked at a dock, it's called berthing. That's why when the doctor says, I'm going to dock your pay, or I'm going to dock you, he went over some concepts dealing with this. There's a play on the words, but there's a history where these concepts derive from, and that's what I'm going over. So the captain of the ship had to provide for the Port Authority a certificate of manifest, how much the ship weighed, the color of the ship, similar to your driver's license, how it may list your weight, the color of your eyes, etc., how it describes you. They had to describe the ship, by the way. So river banks, in many cases, the ships sailed on water, direct the flow of currency. You heard of currents, by the way. So this is why you have, he mentioned circuit court, which is a flow of money, circuitry, electricity, currency. You heard of currents, electrical currents. See the similarities? By the way, so riverbanks direct the flow of currency. He said, this is why you have a circuit court. It's the flow of money. That's why we are an Admiralty Maritime product. When this applies, many of us that have not finished correcting our status, by the way, because when the ship parks at the dock, and if you're late for work, they're going to dock you or dock your pay. That's what he mentioned. By the way, I went a little bit ahead. So if you're working for a corporation, you're considered a franchise. That's what your SSN number, because really that is supposed to, being a US citizen is supposed to apply legally within that 10-mile square radius. Now, if you watch the videos that I previously did on about the contract laws and dealing with the contract, I did like a masterclass, a free basic masterclass, even gets from a beginner to advanced level for many. I went over that information to tie this in. Many don't know, when you check your US citizen, I'm giving you guys a powerful jewel. When you apply for a job, they're supposed to have other options. One of the reasons, and I may touch on this later because I have a plethora of notes, by the way, is the reason some people are having a hard time getting success. Keep in mind, the cabal are the main ones that have created these obstacles and roadblocks. Remember, many of these banks and so-called debt collectors and utility companies, they are in violation. They're practicing major egregious misconduct, like not accepting negotiable instruments. And it's not always the people, the minions that work for them, the underlings or gatekeepers, they're not trained, but there's, at the higher level, when all of this was created, it was major fraud. They were supposed to have a remedy in place, by the way, which that's what HJR 192 deals with, that deals with discharge, set off, offset. Discharge also means to extinguish, to vanish, to get rid of. When you get into the origins of discharge, discharging debt, to extinguish, by the way. So you can easily give up sovereignty if you cut a deal with someone by signing a contract. By the way, your signature, aka your John Hancock, is your most valuable possession. This is what this ties into. And when they talk about real estate, sometimes they're not referring to brick and mortar locations. Your most valuable possession is your signature, because your signature is what funds the security instrument, the promissory note, which this is why they create mortgage companies, banks. They create these positions, these titles of nobility, like underwriters, so they can undersign their name and steal the security instrument from you and have you sign power of attorney away. Notice when you're at closing time and you're giving power of attorney and they take the promissory note, they attach another note, the allonge note behind the scenes, which the check that you are trained to not understand, it's also called a security instrument. They steal that from you. You see, so we've been tricked. Dude, I've never even had a mortgage before, but I learned many years ago that this was hidden concepts, and this is how they use trickery when they put people that think that they're buying a home or owning a home. It's actually, at the end of the day, if you still pay property taxes, the banks still own that, and that's the way how they do things, underhandedly steal the property from you, or underhandedly. By the way, these things are all tied in. It goes more in depth, and there's ways I've learned from speaking with some of my high-level contacts to stop that. And that's why I myself, I had to take a break recently. I have been contemplating on which process I'm going to go through to have my status correction updated, because I did file a lot of paperwork many years ago, but some of that paperwork has expired, by the way, and I need to, but I need to get things correct, because there's newer information and there's people that have some really powerful processes. I admire some unique processes. Like I said, I've studied multiple procedures throughout the years, but I do know when you're utilizing one particular process, it is best to try to stick to that process, that method, so you don't confuse yourself. And that's some of the things I've done myself. But at the same time, I'm also advanced. I'm at a level where I can distinguish between what do's and don'ts, or not to basically mess one up. So once again, if you're working for a corporation, you're considered a franchise. So when you check you're a US citizen, that's really supposed to apply to the 10-mile square radius of Washington, D.C. So this is how these applications, these contracts, you're not knowing, you're unknowingly doing business, you're unknowingly franchising when you operate in commerce as an individual person on the public sector, the statutory side, by the way, and you're contracting based on how you sign things or how you enter into contracts. I'm giving you guys a powerful view how I'm breaking this down just now. That actually gets into some advanced concepts, by the way, because I had a friend, I forgot to tell part of this story a while ago. A friend of mine, a really good friend, had purchased a firearm for me, and he wanted to surprise me. And I told him when I got there, I wish I had a heads up, because I would have filled the application out differently had he given me prior warning, because, you know, they're going to run a background check and things of that sort. So in order to make sure at this time I didn't want there to be any mishaps, I recontracted in this application. Nowadays it was like some type of keypad or whatever. It wasn't no longer any paperwork, because I remember I purchased a firearm on my own some years ago, by the way, and I had to sign, I had to do like physical paperwork, but this time it's different because of technology we have nowadays. They have you sign something that's like a tablet that has like a stylus, and it basically asks you all the questions. And there's particular questions and things that I recognize now dealing with status correction. And I explained this to a friend of mine, even while we were there at the time. I would have brought a particular instrument with me, by the way, and I would have done the application differently, because there's something that I found out, how we're all dual citizens, but based on how we're contracting determines what side you enter into on. And these are some things I figured out on my own throughout the years from watching other advanced practitioners on YouTube, other platforms, etc., that are more advanced than myself. Some I've shouted their names out, I've shouted their channels out in the past, by the way. Now, here are some definitions right here. This is kind of faded. This definition is the term definition. It says monster. It says physiology, persons, an animal which has conformation contrary to the order of nature. Douglason's Human Physiosol, Volume 2, page 422, Bouvier Law Dictionary. I've heard about that. Look up the term monster. Here's another definition. If you guys should still be able to see my screen. I'm going to go in a little bit to the chat section to see how many people we got in. I had to mute myself out. There's like a separate window whenever you're using Zoom, so we're not getting feedback. So it doesn't sound like I hear myself talking twice. You guys know what that means. It says human being is defined. It says see monster, which was the definition just above. It says on page 540 of the same law dictionary, monster is defined as a human being by birth, but in some part resembling a lower animal. Ballantyne's self-pronouncing law dictionary, 1948, comma, page 389. So if you guys can see, I know this is faded. It appears as though they scanned this document. So I'm sharing my screen. I'm reading from a document right now. And it has another definition of monster. It says, is defined as a person so cruel, wicked, depraved, etc., as to horrify others. Webster's New World Dictionary, third college edition, 1988, pages 879 to 880. Okay, so it was giving you like to show there's duality. There's a legal meaning, and then there's a totally like a basic understanding that most of us thought things meant. But when you deal with the legal system, it has a totally different meaning, by the way. So just something to keep in mind legally. Just keep that in mind. That's called legalese. I recommend, in my opinion, look up the definition of legalese, and that will explain why the legal system and court, if you've ever been or had to deal with, why they speak in a different language. Some of the words that we think that we use commonly can have an entirely different meaning and concept within the court judicial system, by the way. Some of these words I'm not even as familiar with, so you have to bear with me if I'm mispronouncing them. This word says regenerate means not regenerate, unrepentant, and unregenerate sinner, not convinced by or unconverted to a particular religion, wicked, sinful, dissolute. Random House Dictionary of the English Language, 2nd edition, page 901. So this is just going over, I may not read all these definitions, but it's kind of giving a concept behind the importance, how these, the terminology ties in, by the way. I'm going to go to the chat section in a little bit. I'm gonna read a few more of these definitions. I skipped over some. One says person and lawman and person are not exactly synonymous. Wow, it says synonymous terms. I'll read that again. It says person and law, man and person are not exactly synonymous terms. Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856. Then it has number 1, Bouvier.institution N.137. Okay, it has another definition, a person. It says, it is also used to denote a corporation, which is an artificial person. .1BL, com.1234 being 669. I'm not sure if that's case law or American jurisprudence with that, these other references referred to, but you guys should be able to see what I'm reading because I do have my screen capture still set up. And it has another definition, says person and general usage, a human being, but then it has in parentheses, natural person, which that's actually a separate terminology. Some may not be aware. I recommend look up online, even if you don't have a Black's Law or Bouvier's legal dictionary, look up natural person and look up just regular definition of person. There are two different meanings. It says, though by statute term may include labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees, and bankruptcy or receivers. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. I actually have that edition. The scope and delineation of term is necessary for determining to whom 14th Amendment of Constitution affords protection, since this amendment expressly applies to person. That's why you may hear some people in certain contracts refer to 14th Amendment citizens, which is jurisdictional on the statutory public side, by the way. So we're going to go down some more. We have a private person, an individual who is not incumbent of an office. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, 1957, comma P 1359. I guess that might be the page that's referring to. Okay, then it has definitions of aliens. It says aliens are persons within meaning of 14th Amendment, Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. Yep, there's trickery because they have like non-resident alien, something to think about. Alien can also refer to sometimes as foreign, just like you have foreign national. But you have to kind of understand sometimes with these terms, which contracts they apply to. And this is where the language gets meticulous, and you have to have the ability to be able to recognize the trickery and subterfuge that they're using. Here's another important definition. Citizenship implies incorporation, corporate citizen. Incorporation into what? To the United States, which is defined as a federal corporation in 28 USC 3002, subsection 15. I remember that. I've gone over that before. Yes, Title 28 of the United States Codes refers to the United States as a federal corporation. This is the actual law to back that up. And United States Code Title 28, Section 3002, subsection 15. The United States is a federal corporation. Yeah, I might go over some more of these definitions. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go to the chat section to acknowledge you all that have joined in. We have so far 31 people watching. Appreciate you guys. If you guys like the content that I put out, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. You're watching Dorsey's Resource Channel. The title of this video is Birth Certificate, Hidden Meaning legal concepts and history Q&A. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Support the channel. In the description box should be the information. If you want to support the channel, to donate, Cash App, PayPal. So I'm going to acknowledge everyone in. We have Lisa Julian in the building. Says, what's up, Dorsey? Watching from Virginia. Okay, big shout out to Virginia. Virginia in the building. We have Chi Vegas says, peace, peace, Dorsey and chat love. Appreciate you, Chi Vegas. Thank you for joining. Tony Benson Mahuka says, aloha, Dorsey. God bless. Greetings to you, Tony. Thank you. And God bless you as well. Thank you for joining. Life is Scripted says, Articles of Confederation. Okay, I've heard of those documents before, by the way. Pastor Sky says, hit the like button, family. Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah, let's smash the like button, guys. Let's get the likes up. Thank you for joining, everybody. Pastor Sky says, peace and blessings. Peace to you, Sky. Thank you for joining. Lisa Julian says, connecting the dots. Life Scripted says, learn how to enforce those contracts. Chi Vegas says, thanks for sharing this valuable information with us, Dorsey. Love. I'm trying to learn the process of getting out of our mortgage after being tricked. Yes, I understand and overstand and understand. By the way, many of the private meetings I attended by invitation only many years ago, I noticed there were a lot of older people there were dealing with those situations, and it was very vicious because of the control the banking and the court system has, by the way, because they would send people to landlord-tenant court. And people were learning. They said, I thought when I purchased a home that I'm the actual landlord, but they were sending people to a landlord-tenant court in 36th District Court, downtown Detroit. And then they would do a process sometimes to transfer them. And then there were certain legal maneuvers done to try to, I guess, to fight the case. And it was just a big racket because some of the people that did hire lawyers, remember, lawyers are members of the Bar Association, which is an acronym for British Accredited Registry. By the way, if you read Lawyers and Judges' Secret Oath, lawyers are esquires for the Queen. By the way, similar to on a chessboard. And remember, majority of lawyers in the legal system are pledged. They swear a secret oath to uphold the Bar Association. So even if they're on the opposite side of a case, this is why when they appoint people, appoint lawyers and things of that sort. I'll let you guys find that article because it gets complex for some people to understand based off what you've been taught. And I was shocked, but it makes sense that they control the outcome, similar to sports, how you have referees. The judge also acts as a referee. And I found out in juvenile court, or some juvenile courts, they refer to the judge as a referee. So referee was, we think in sports like basketball or football and baseball, they call it an umpire, but that has a legal meaning. In the legal system, a referee can be a judge. That's something else that's critical. See, based off the knowledge I have to show you guys, I've been around for a while. Chi Vegas says, it's so refreshing to converse with like-minded souls. Appreciate you, Chi. Chi Vegas, Jesus Israel says at Chi Vegas, how you doing this day? Let me go up here, skip this part. Says they owe us a lot of money, trillions. We can sell our birth certificate for our money back. Jesus Israel says grateful at Chi Vegas. Okay, I'm selling my birth certificate back to them so I can get out of America and buy land in Africa or the land of Israel. Okay, awesome. Says Lisa Julian says, love your great info. Thanks. Jesus Israel says, I'd rather invest in gold than paper money. Oh, awesome. We have Maine Wills says, what up, Dorsey? DC in the building, my brother. Thank you for the awesome knowledge. All right, big shout out to DC. So we got Virginia and DC in the building. So if you guys want to shout out your state, your location, feel free to do so. So we got Virginia, DC in the house. Life Scripted says foreign agents. Ruby Jones says stepping up to stand out here in Oklahoma. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. Okay, Oklahoma in the building. Root. So if you guys want to give a shout out to your state, don't hesitate to feel free to jump in. I know we have people from everywhere, all walks of life. I think the other brother earlier was out of Hawaii. It's been a follower for a while. I recognize Tony Benson Mahuka. I think, don't quote me exactly. But if you guys want to shout out your location, feel free to do so. So we got Oklahoma, Virginia, DC in the building, and it appears to be Hawaii. So far, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate your time. Quad Charlie says thank you. QC at Lisa Julian says absolutely. So okay. So I'm going to get back to going over the rest of the information if I can find the definitions. Okay. So I went over citizen, another definition of citizen. It says a person may be a citizen for commercial purposes and not political purposes. Ooh. So let's scroll back up. You guys should still be able to see my screen. Okay, I jumped down. Oh, I went too far. Scroll down some more. Okay. That ought to do it. Okay, citizen, a native or naturalized member of a state or nation who owes allegiance to its government and is entitled to its protection, a civilian. Random House Webster's College Dictionary, 1992, page 248. Now we have slave, a person who is wholly subject to the will of another, one who has no freedom of action, but whose person and services are wholly under the control of another, one who is under the power of a master and who belongs to him, so that master may sell and dispose of his person, of his industry, and of his labor without I would say him or her being able to do anything, have anything, or acquire anything, but what must belong to his master. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. This is pretty self-explanatory. Corporation, the definition, it says a corporation is a person within meaning of 14th Amendment, Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, by the way. So these are some critical terminology that we're going over, critical terms, definitions. Government derived from the Latin verb governo, governare, meaning to control, and the Latin noun mentis, meaning mind, translation to control the mind. Okay. Oh, like to govern. Okay. So we went over birth certificates and banknotes. So this is showing you like a diagram. This has like a template. It says how your birth certificate is traded on the stock exchange, directions for seeing who owns you and your children. Okay, I guess the person is referring to in this particular document, they're going to go over, I'm going to read. It says, in an earlier post, I related the strange story of how the Republic of America was hijacked by a corporation called the United States. I read that definition earlier. Legally, the United States is a federal corporation pursuant to United States Code and reference to USC Title 28, Section 3002, subsection 15 in parentheses. And I would say look up section A, B, and C in the subsection. In that post, I focused on the corporation and its relationship to the justice system. Bill Brockbrader declared himself a sovereign being and based upon solid law demanded his case be dismissed. Says, I promise you I would explain why you should be very concerned, but the fact this nation has been hijacked by a corporation being run by international bankers, I suspect this post is only the first. Today, we're going to look at how you are being bought and sold on the stock market. Right here, this has a diagram. It's a state of Louisiana. This is a template. It has a number. Then it has, you guys should be able to see my screen. It says American Banknote Company. And I'll read some more. Now, some of the terms in here may be somewhat faded out because it appears this document, this PDF file, someone scanned this many years ago and uploaded it. So some of the font, by the way, is a little bit faded, but I'll be able to read it. It says it begins with the U.S. Standard Certificate of Live Birth, and it has a what appears to be like a website referencing a PDF file. It says the information is used to issue the birth certificate, which is actually a banknote. This banknote / birth certificate is sent to the state where the live birth is registered. The state makes a certified copy and sends that on to the Department of Commerce. Remember, I told you guys the story earlier. I have a private source, a legitimate, elite private source. He's told me this story on many occasions where there was a gentleman he saw who had his birth certificate portion. When he looked at it, part of it had still listed the United States Department of Commerce, because they normally cut off a certain section, by the way. But this particular gentleman, he saw where they didn't cut it off, and he confirmed, because I remember reading this many years ago when I first woke up to this information. Many years ago, I read about how there's a process after it's sent from Vital Statistics to the Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C., then the Federal Reserve, they take out a loan and pledge you as collateral. Then it's eventually sent to the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation in New York, 55 Water Street, New York, where it's held in room 666, I hear. It's either in the basement, but I heard it was room 666 at the DTC. It's an acronym for Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. And on the website, GMEI Utility, you should be able to look up if you type in your social security number in the upper right-hand corner of that website, you should be able to still see the entities worldwide that are trading off your QSIP, by the way, because social SSN is a form of a QSIP. By the way, not only is it an exemption account, by the way, it holds multiple positions as an organization, an entity. It's also not only an auto tris, it's also a QSIP number, which is attached to the birth certificate, by the way. And GMEI Utility is a subsidiary of the DTC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. You can look that up. Everything is running through the DTC. By the way, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, they're all running through under the DTC. Everything goes through the DTC, and the DTC's parent company, I knew this off the top of the head, and I have my elite source actually has their tax ID number, because many years ago, when actual physical certificates and bonds were being traded, there was a coin shop we attended some years ago. I won't say which location, by the way, but in the state that we're in the state of Michigan. And this particular coin shop would give out, if you purchase a certain amount of coins, or you could pay for like a small fee, similar how some coin dealers, you can buy like the magazines that have list the different types of coins to familiarize yourself with. Well, they would sell these older certificates. I don't know where they got them, but they're actual stock certificates, by the way, before they did things electronically. And one of them actually had Seed & Company posted on the back of this instrument or on the front. I can't remember. One of these instruments I actually have. When I find it again, I've been meaning to do a video, and I'm gonna show you guys as proof. By the way, it's similar. It looks very similar to a birth certificate, like that describes this document that I'm going over. So I want to tie this in. And I was also hearing information where people were talking about this changeover that is taking place with how the Federal Reserve is under the Treasury. Keep in mind, they've always been like brother and sister, and I have some more documents to confirm. I actually was doing a lot of research recently, but they all fall up under the DTC. The DTC is like the parent company. The DTC is like the great grandmother. It's where they derive from, where the Treasury and the Federal Reserve was born out of. But keep in mind, originally, we should have only been dealing with the Treasury, by the way. But when I learned when they were setting up the process for the global currency reset many years ago, there's an audio I have called Thing 1 and Thing 2. I was informed about from a source that I have actually spoke to very recently. I got back in touch with. He told me about this audio many years ago. And it was an informative conference call that talked about what's happening now. I think the elites were on this call. They didn't want to give their actual name. So they used a pseudonym as Thing 1 and Thing 2. and they described with this new banking changeover what was going to be. And they stated the difference: the Federal Reserve is not going to totally go away. They just said they're like, we're going to have a parallel banking system, and the Treasury is going to take over as the majority shareholder, because each one of these sites have actually listed each other's names on these sites. Like if you go to the Federal Reserve's website, frbservices.org, that's the website of the Federal Reserve. And there's actually another website that the Federal Reserve has, another division, the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, by the way, which is a separate division, by the way. And they're separate divisions of the Treasury, by the way, just like different departments, but they're all related. They're intertwined, by the way. You'll see a section that says Treasury Management. So they're all linked, by the way. So as far as them being in a circle, they're all connected, and they fall up under the DTC. The DTC is like the parent company, but the parent company of the DTC, or the organic company behind the DTC, because remember in the early 1900s, I found out majority of corporations started off as common law express trusts before they changed, by the way, because you guys have to go back and study case law, Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case, why you have to go back and study the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, when they created the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, when they implemented the Emergency War Powers Act of 1933, and then the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case was of 1938, that changed the majority of court systems in this country from common law to de facto courts under colorable law, by the way. So corporations changed as well from common law, the way that they used to operate, they used to exist, to having, nowadays we have, because of technology, they become super conglomerates, by the way. And I had some documents that goes into the history. It can get complex, but there's a source of origin where these things derive from. So I'm going over the title of this video once again, in case you're just now joining me. I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource, doing business as that legal fiction, by the way. The N lingus, the birth certificate, hidden meaning, legal concepts and history, plus Q&A. It's the title of this video. And this document, I may not get to the other documents. I don't want to be long-winded, but I want to give you guys a jewel and let you guys know what's in store down the road, and also give you guys a public service announcement. My consultations have gone up because of the request. I went up to also keep the numbers down, but I've also been working with someone that's helped create the website. I was busy this past week. We're still adding things to the site, by the way, as I'm still learning to become better acclimated. And I have, like I said, I have a large library of information, of backup hard drives, of files, and I also have physical copies of things, of audios and things from many years ago from different seminars, because some of that information is still important. But back then we didn't have as good of the information that we have nowadays, by the way. So I like to get that information uploaded down the road. So those are things that we have in store. By the way, some ideas I have, I'll give further down the road, but I just have to give you guys an update. So in the description box, some of the older descriptions, those half-hour consultations are no longer, I phase those out. So if you want to speak to me in person, if you want to know what I know specifically, there's some people, someone left had a question. It was a long comment, and you may need to set up a consultation. Sometimes I'll answer questions in a comment, but if the question gets too complex, because I do hear from other advanced practitioners, people that I follow myself on YouTube, because I'm at an advanced stage, I'm at an advanced level in this, but I'll be getting to the final levels in the end, because similar to when I studied martial arts, there's some very advanced stages called the final level. So I'm getting ready to pony up the funds. I'm just deciding which procedure I'm going to go through. Some people I would like to reach out to have my paperwork documentation done. There's several people I highly admire their work, that I feel that they're highly advanced, but I know I'm going to have to follow, if I decide to pay the funds to exercise those procedures, that I'm going to have to follow those things to the T, and I may be a lot busier. And that's why this past week I was doing a lot of research, and just an idea that the method of the special deposit is very interesting, by the way. And I know these concepts are related. When I studied under Jonah Bay some years ago, some of his work, he did a joint webinar some years ago, which I still have with Yusuf El, by the way, where they talked about restrictive endorsements, how you endorse certain instruments, which they also call checks, what we refer to as like a paycheck. Some of us still receive a physical paycheck. By the way, one time we were forced to do direct deposit, and for whatever reason, the company I'm with, actually, they went back to physical paychecks, by the way. But nowadays, I like how you have mobile deposit, but how you endorse those instruments. There's a education in banking or business law. Remember, there was a video I did a while ago where I helped you guys connect the dot. There was a book called Business Law, and I discovered this on my own. No other advanced practitioners or gurus talked about this. By the way, I think only the closest may have been Yusuf El, but there's a book, look up, called Business Law. By the way, I have a physical copy that led me on my quest to investigate, and it appears as though it's taught at college universities for people that go into the legal field or even finance majors. Banking and accounting, this intersects with, but I discovered that there's actual chapters in that book that actually relate to how to exercise this type of information in real life, how to conduct commerce. There's a chapter on negotiable instruments called commercial paper. There's another chapter on intellectual property that deals with trade names, copyrights, trademarks. Another name for the in lingus, where you're doing business as the legal person, it's also referred to as the trade name, by the way. So there's a chapter in business law class that's called intellectual property. Generally, in many of the books, if you look up the PDF files, ones I've already researched online for free, I've already downloaded, because I have it up here. But I've looked at many of the chapters, and some of these books are huge. They're big, large legal books, and they talk about the one particular chapter, intellectual property, goes over like copyright filings, fictitious names, DBAs, trade names of that sort. That's how you learn that education for that discipline. But a lot of times this knowledge is well hidden from us because, as I mentioned earlier, from some notes that I have, there's a lot of information, a lot of dots to connect. Keep in mind, the cabal at the top has created these obstacles, and debt is their weapon. So they've used these different tricks, and some people have been able to figure these things out. Some people have had assistance. And I remember this webinar, Jonah Bay talked about a restrictive endorsement, and there's even ways to how you do certain things to even get more funds back during income tax time, or based on how you do your taxes. But I did give a disclaimer: this is not financial, this is not legal, this is not tax advice, but that is related to that discipline and special endorsements. For special deposits, you have restrictive endorsements. There's a discipline, and a business and law class relates to, actually has a chapter that deals with special endorsements, restrictive endorsements. By the way, Jonah Bay and Yusuf El went over that information years ago, and that's related. I just don't know some of the specifics behind how some special deposits are done, but I do get the concept. I know there's another procedure where a lady I discovered, and this process comes from an older Patriot guru from many years ago that my cousin told me about, that where she does a process. She's since updated. I think she's perfected it, by the way, and it's related to a restrictive endorsement, which is related to special deposit. And it's based on the language that you utilize when you fill out some of these security instruments or presentments, will be based on how you would get a refund, by the way. But if you want to know these types of things, I've already done consultations where I go more in depth. There's a channel that actually refers to that particular process, by the way. So I can still be somewhat vague, but if you want to set up a consultation with me to learn about those things, my fees are now $100 per hour, by the way. And you have to send me an email first, follow the instructions, but I'll have to update the description box. But I just want to give you guys a public service announcement before I get to the rest of this document and read the rest. That's if you want to know what I know. And I am at a certain level. I do admit that. But some of the things I specialize in is basics for the beginners, based on my intellectual property. I've studied a multitude of processes from advanced practitioners throughout the years. So I can detect certain things. I have a plethora of webinars, tutorials, and documents, a large library, not only on backup hard drives, but also on CDs and DVDs, things of that sort, just to let you know how I've been studying. And it takes a team of people. That's why I recommend people that are in different groups in your state, find like-minded people in your area, by the way, because not one person generally can do this by yourself unless you're advanced where you have a photographic memory, a high IQ, you can do amazing things. But if you form alliances with like-minded people, there's a saying, one person can put 1,000 a flight, but 2 or more people like minds together can put 10,000 a flight. When 2 or more are gathered together, you can do amazing things. So without further ado, to go over the information about the birth certificate, it says this information is used to issue the birth certificate, which is actually a banknote. This banknote / birth certificate is sent to the state where the live birth is registered. The state makes a certified copy and sends that on to the Department of Commerce, Washington, D.C. From there, another certified copy is made and sent to the International Monetary Fund in Brussels, Belgium. The IMF is center of the world of international banking. The IMF is the center. And now, one of the first subscribers that I allowed to reach out to me some years ago that had credentials, Tremaine Williams, by the way, that mentioned to me he was a facilitator. He saw the screens light up at the New York Stock Exchange. He explained to me not only is the birth certificate traded on a domestic level, like in the state that you were born in, it's generating revenue for that state. By the way, and then remember, when you move and you're doing business as a legal person and that follows you, that's why you have to update your information. But it's best to go back and handle things in your birth state. And some processes are different. I know with correcting the name or either changing the name altogether and leaning the other name up, different advanced processes up there. But I can go more in depth about those things like in private consultations, things of that sort. And I'm actually getting to the final levels where I'm going to be getting ready real soon to contact some people, some advanced practitioners, and getting my things done at the higher levels. And that's going to take some time. I may actually have to take a break away from doing some of these things, but I do get the concepts very well. And this document that I'm reading from will give you an understanding that this is real, where people wonder about the birth certificate. I have video evidence, even with the court system. I was watching a brief video how the court system is connected to the Federal Reserve. I have visual evidence that was done, by the way, from collecting information, but I'll get to that later. So this banker that I met, broker, he was the first subscriber that I allowed to reach out to me. Tremaine, he helped me understand that the birth certificate is traded on an international level. And he told me it goes even all the way to Switzerland, by the way. And he dealt with people that dealt with high net worth transactions. And he also had spent time, he told me, in the music industry. He worked as a promoter. He met Busta Rhymes before and things of that sort. And he gave me his background, his credentials. He spoke with potentates, diplomats, high net worth people. But he explained that to me many years ago, that your birth certificate is not only traded on a domestic level, but an international level. That's why you guys, many of you are familiar with the site GMEI Utility, which is a subsidiary of the DTC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Should list that, by the way. And Euroclear is for people that are like born overseas. If you're wondering, do they do this in other countries? Yes, they do. I had a consultation a while ago with the guy over in the UK. That's United Kingdom, Great Britain, aka England. And I explained that he didn't know about Euroclear. By the way, that's the European version where they do trade securities and things, by the way. And there's a connection with the DTC, by the way. So this is done on an international level. And this is what this document that I'm reading from is basically confirming, but I wanted to give you all a background reference, by the way, based off my own knowledge and cognizance on the subject matter. The banknote / birth certificate is now listed as a collateral asset for the United States corporation. Now the corporation can take out a loan using your birth certificate as collateral, which leads me to the Federal Reserve notes that we carry. And I'll use the $1 bill as an example, by the way, which, you know, this list, which Federal Reserve, this bank comes out of G for Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Then the numbers, notice if you look at the back of your current Social Security card, some say the numbers on the back represent the Foreign Situs Trust. The numbers on the front represent the Sestacue Trust, by the way. But notice the similarities because, and there's a document online that actually somebody uploaded, I don't know who out there, that shows like a back of a Social Security card along with the dollar bill. So they pledge us as collateral, which this document is going over. And speaking of, so I just wanted to give you a reference, by the way, that so the corporation says now the corporation can take out a loan using your birth certificate as collateral. While being done, this practice is totally illegal. Why? That's if these people got caught. That's what they're afraid of too. And that's why they're blocking a lot of people, are making it difficult for a lot of people to do the discharge processes or set off debt. Discharges and set off. They hold that under lock and key. That's heavily controlled. It says, well, because this is probably the first time you've heard about this, you might be assuming this document, you might think this is a scam. But it says, see, what the birth certificate collateral is really saying is that you are responsible for the loan the United States corporation is taking out. And if you look up, I have a friend of mine's wife is an accountant. We had got into a debate one time, friendly debate. I told my friend about it. And if you look up usdebtclock.org, and it scared her, freaked her out. She had never even known about it. And she saw it, spooked her big time, because they're saying that you owe that debt when you haven't, especially like if you haven't corrected your status. And we're not subtracting based on how something I alluded to earlier, dealing with restrictive endorsement or a type of special deposit that you would do, that you not only will file with the bank, but let's say if you do a certain type of filing with the IRS to subtract from the national debt, by the way, because by forcing us to pay with Federal Reserve notes, by forcing us to pay with FRNs, which is legally fiat currency, it doesn't subtract from the national debt. So you have debits and credits. There's double entry bookkeeping and the generally accepted accounting principles. You have accounts payable, notes payable, accounts receivable. You have assets and liabilities. There's a dual-sided ledger. So we're being tricked on how we're operating in commerce, and we're being many times forcefully blocked and not being given our remedy. And there's those out here who are hiding that information, by the way. That's being done intentionally. That comes from the bankers at the very top, the cabal, the evil cabal. That's why I say look up the documentary Money Masters, look up Monopoly Men, look up the document Changes on the Horizon. You can watch all these documentaries for free on YouTube. You should be able to. But if you do have the money, I do recommend you support those people out there, because some people have risked their lives to research and investigate as investigative journalists that information and bring that to the public. So that's why I wanted to go over to tie this in. The birth certificate is collateral. And it says it's saying you are responsible for the loan the United States corporation is taking out. You are being found responsible for the loan. However, as you had no knowledge of this transaction, it is an unconscionable contract and illegal. That's where they're using subterfuge. And that's what Akeem El mentioned, by the way, in one of his videos I noticed on the channel, use that word, the terminology, subterfuge. They're using trickery, deception. A lot of the documents they removed many years ago when I first learned about this information that is now on the Scribs website. My friend tells me that's owned by the Discovery Channel. That's taken a lot of those free documents used to be able to pull up online, because, you know, Google censorship and things has pulled, certain sites have pulled a lot of those free documents used to be able to pull up. Some sites you can still research and pull up a lot of information free, but a lot of those documents will talk about the deception, fraud that has been taking place, that has taken place upon the American people to force us into involuntary servitude, by the way, because slavery is going on in a different form. If you've heard of the wage slave, job is just over broke, by the way, wage slave, you see. So as this says, if you have a copy of your birth certificate, take a look at it. You will see a series of numbers at the bottom. If your birth certificate is in color, the numbers will be in red. Those numbers comprise a security stock exchange number registered on the World Stock Exchange. To see how you are doing and who owns you, go to this link. And this has Fidelity's website. Now, I heard recently, not too long ago, I don't know exactly the time period, that Fidelity, they made it where you have to get a membership or you have to sign up, and because their website is compartmentalized, that's actually called the deep web, not the dark web. When a website has security where you have to have a password or something to enter it to, there's a difference between the deep web and dark web. It's compartmentalized, so I've heard they made it harder to look up your QSIP, but there may be other sites like TD Ameritrade, other brokerage firms, Merrill Lynch, you never know, by the way, but Fidelity, there is a connection. And this document is kind of like, give an example. You guys should be able to see my screen. Some of it is faded out because someone scanned this document online, but I'm just uploading. This has example, the ticker symbol, which I noticed a friend of mine printed up his different QSIPs with the values they were trading at, and it showed the ticker symbol and all of that. So this is kind of giving you guys a visual. So you guys see, I'm not just making this up. This is not make-believe. I have actual supporting documentation. But this was an example how this was done many years ago. I guess they scanned this, they highlighted, they went on Fidelity's website. These were like instructions they went through. I might actually try to find out, research this as I'm learning more information myself, because I learned one of the birth certificates is different from the other certificate. One is birth certificates, I think the short form, it deals with the stock certificate, by the way. So getting ready to shut things down. I'm going to go back to the chat section. So I just wanted you guys to be able to see my screen. I'm just scrolling through the rest of this document, but it has like scanned information about basically the birth certificate. And let me see what this part at the bottom is about. Has some more information about the Maternity Act. Interesting. Says was passed creating birth registration, or what we know as the birth certificate. It was known as the Maternity Act and was sold to the American people as a law that would reduce maternal and infant mortality, protect the health of mothers and infants, and for other purposes. One of those other purposes provided for the establishment of a federal bureau designed to cooperate with state agencies in the overseeing of its operations and expenditures. This can now be seen as the first attempt of government by appointment or cooperation of state governments to aid federal government in usurping the legislative process of the several states as exists today through the federal grant and aid to the state programs. Prior to 1921, the records of births and names of children were entered into family Bibles, as were the records of marriages and deaths. These records were readily accepted by both the family and the law as the official records. Since 1921, the American people have been registering the births and names of their children with the government of the state in which they are born, even though there is no federal law requiring it. The state claims an interest in every child within its jurisdiction, telling the parents that registering their child's birth through the birth certificate serves as proof that he/she was born within territories of the United States, thereby making him/her a United States citizen/slave. A certificate is a paper establishing an ownership claim. Barron's Dictionary of Banking Terms, Registration of Birth, began in 1915 by the Bureau of Census, with all states adopting the practice by 1933. See, this is history. It says birth and marriage certificates are a form of securities called warehouse receipts. The items included on a warehouse receipt, as described at 7-202 of the Uniform Commercial Code, the law which governs commercial paper and transactions which parallel a birth or marriage certificate, are the location of the warehouse where the goods are stored, residence, That's a jurisdictional statutory term. But that's why when you're a registered voter, an elder had mentioned to me, who was pretty advanced some years ago before he died, at the Southfield Library, some classes, meetings I used to attend privately once in every blue moon, stated that's how they try to update your registry. They also use the U.S. Census, which I kind of just read about earlier, by the way, because see, when they're making you a resident, they're tying you in jurisdiction too. Through these are forms of contracts, adhesion contracts, by the way. Remember, I did a video already. You guys have to go back, watch my video on adhesion contracts. That's how these things tie in, so you understand where these concepts derive from. Very important to have the basics down, because as my sensei trained me in martial arts, said if you don't have the foundation down, when you get to the advanced levels and I start teaching you the advanced moves, you might not be conditioned enough. You know, your fists, your arms, you might break a hand, arm, or leg because you haven't trained the conditioning with your diet or with iron training to strengthen your knuckles. Where I was so strong, I could go down and do push-ups on my fist. I could put my fist through a car windshield easily because I conditioned the knuckles on my fingers to develop whelps, to make them tougher, to strengthen the bones, to build calluses. So this is part of the conditioning to get the basic fundamentals down. So before you get to the advanced stages, you know, it's important to have the basics down to kind of tie these concepts in so you guys will get. It says the date of issue of the receipt, the date issued, the consecutive number of the receipt found on the back or front of the certificate, usually in red numbers. I know on the back of some of the birth certificates, they're red, just like some of the newer Social Security cards. It doesn't matter if some cards are blue or black. Some of the older versions, they were in blue or black, but those are the CUSIP numbers. You want to hold on to those. Sometimes that describes the master account, by the way, of the Federal Reserve, of your Federal Reserve banking account. And the Federal Reserve Bank, once again, is connected to the Treasury. That conference call, if I find that again, I might see if I can upload that, where some individuals from the private sector mentioned this new banking changeover, which is already being implemented. They said the Treasury is going to take over as the majority shareholder. They said specifically many years ago that it didn't mean the Federal Reserve was going away. We're going to have another banking system, and I found out, and I had another separate video for that. I don't have my notes with me, but I met with one of my private sources actually earlier in the month. I actually meant to do that video, but I decided to go with this video. So maybe down the road, I'll postpone that. But it's a very powerful video. It's even going to tie in because I found out some things they're changing, and this ties in with the Iraqi dinar. Those of you all, if you're involved with the global currency reset or the revaluation of different currencies, how people are going to get paid. And I was surprised because it was just what I had thought what the cabal was up to. They're changing the whole system, but they're still going to have their old legacy system. That actually is referred to as, if you guys have heard of the older black card, I have another private source that has like the newer black cards, by the way, and they told me the newer cards will take precedence over the old black cards. And I'm not talking about, because people get this mystique about the black card. There's many different types of black cards. You can have like a bank account have different images of a card, your debit card that's attached to your account. You can have the color of it change, and you have an American Express card, different companies, but I'm talking about the black card that deals with the Federal Reserve Bank. And there's also a connection with the DTC. I forgot I was informed many years ago, even though the DTC had a separate elite card that was very secretive, that was a high level secretive card, the Federal Reserve card, black card, could access, if you were a member of the DTC, it could access your DTC account. Now you had to receive instructions on how to use that, by the way, but I was informed that doesn't put you in the old system. It just depends on how you operate. Keep in mind, when you change one's status, by the way, that will protect you. And there's different ways, different high-level ways to correct one's status, by the way, because that's why I explained to a friend of mine why some rich people go to jail, because there's a difference between rich people who are public versus rich people who are wealthy. There's a difference. There's some that know about the private free sector. And there's some things I've gone into in the past where there's a separation and some of these concepts can get meticulous. Some people won't understand, but I'll save that for another whole elite masterclass where I would go even more in depth to break down how meticulous that gets and how to distinguish, between that. But these private sector people mentioned from many years ago, under this new system that's already been implemented, the Treasury has become the majority shareholder, but it didn't mean the Federal Reserve is going to completely go away. I know there's talk about the SWIFT system, and they are going to move over to the other system. I think the SWIFT system is eventually going to get completely phased out, but it's going to be a process as that is going to be phased out. But that was also referred to, I forgot, my private source went over, that black card was referred to as the legacy card. But if your status has already changed, it's not going to put you back in the public or put you back in the system, as some may think. They're all connected. And the DTC is the mother. That's the parent company. And then the parent company of the DTC, you can look up, do research, is Seeding Company. By the way, Seeding Company is behind the scenes. And a friend of mine, close friend, one of my elite sources, whose name I won't say to protect their identity, actually has the tax ID number and showed me, by the way, and I have another document, by the way, that show how years ago they traded physical stocks that was different, how nowadays they do things electronically, digitally. And this was at a coin shop. Sometimes coin shops contain memorabilia notes, by the way, because you know the notes many years ago, if you want to find evidence, how the older versions, for example, just using this as an example of the bills that we use, and these are legally, these are copyrighted, these are Federal Reserve notes, IOUs, promissory notes, fiat, greenbacks were, would say redeemable, redeem in lawful money, or remember redeemable as silver. Now there's something that they did that would be for another master class, by the way, to kind of tie that in together. So to finish up, this part says birth/marriage certificates now appear to at least qualify as warehouse receipts under the Uniform Commercial Code. Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition defines. So I went over, okay, believe I read that. The description of the goods or of the packages containing them, it has in parentheses name, sex, date of birth, etc. The signature of the warehouseman, which may be made by his authorized agent. It has in parentheses municipal clerk or state register signature. Because see, they're managing your estate. What they do is they create a constructive trust when you don't know and you haven't corrected your status and you go into court, and then they administer your trust, your estate, by the way. So this is kind of going over, tying in these concepts and with the when you learn the terminology. So once again, I'll read, it says birth/marriage certificates now appear to at least qualify as warehouse receipts under the Uniform Commercial Code, Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition. So this is evidence. These are not my words. So I'm just merely a messenger sharing the information to you guys. You guys have all the power to research. But this, going over the evidence from this document that someone scanned, I'm reading from, says warehouse receipt. A warehouse receipt, which is considered a document of title, may be a negotiable instrument and is often used for financing with inventory as security. That's why the other example I mentioned earlier, where it said American or banknote company. A friend of mine told me his birth certificate from Maryland, he noticed said American Banknote Company when I first informed him about this information many years ago, and he saw that I wasn't making this up because he was a researcher himself and very well studied, by the way. He was able to see what I was, the example that I was given, he was able to see that was credible, by the way. Okay, we're going to read some more without further ado. We're almost at the end of this document. After I finish reading this document, I'm going to go to the chat section. I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to shout you guys out. So it says, this last paragraph says, since the U.S. went bankrupt in 1933, all new money has to be borrowed into existence. All states started issuing serial number certificated warehouse receipts for births and marriages in order to pledge us as collateral against those loans and municipal bonds taken out with the Federal Reserve's banks. It says the full faith and credit of the American people is said to be that which backed the nation's debt. Now, I actually have a document. By the way, excuse me, I had something on my tongue. I actually have a document from some years ago. I have to find it, where there was a congressional session where it mentioned that the currency is backed by the people. I also have a private audio of a seminar of someone from years ago who mentioned this at the Atlanta, Georgia seminar. I won't say the name. He went over this information too. I remember I didn't listen to the whole seminar, but I remember hearing that part. He told the audience that you back the currency, because as I kind of went over that already, you guys will just have to go back in the beginning after this video uploads and watch it to get that jewel. So I'll read it again. The full faith and credit of the American people is said to be that which backs the nation's debt. That simply means the American people's ability to labor and pay back the debt. In order to catalog its laborers, the government needed an efficient, methodical system of tracking its property. To that end, humans today are looked upon merely as resources, human resources / capital, that is. Okay, the end. So we've gone through this whole document, and I read that was the last paragraph of this particular document. So I went over, and the title of this video was Birth Certificate, Hidden Meaning, Legal Concepts and History, plus Q&A. And I just went over, I'm going to get ready to go to the chat section before I shut this video down to acknowledge you guys' comments. If you have any statements, questions, or concerns, now's the time to get them in. I'm getting ready to wrap things up. But I wanted you guys, that's why I'm using the Zoom software, so you guys can see my screen. That's why I paid for this. I paid per month, by the way. So you guys will see the receipts, see the evidence. I have a large library, once again, of many templates, documents, processes, procedures I've studied throughout the years, by the way. But now it's coming the time that I'm getting ready to go to the next level. But I thought, since there's a stampede of newbies, people who are learning, a lot of beginners, and there are advanced people at advanced levels at this in this type of information, I thought I, help, with the education, by the way. It's phenomenal information on YouTube now, and other groups you've had that popped up on Telegram. Big shout out to Shayla Christian down in Texas, Houston, for putting me up on the Facebook group, by the way, introducing me to the host that had over 4,000 members. I haven't been as active like some of the Telegram groups, so I forgot all about Facebook groups, because I have a source in the DC area that stayed in touch with me, shares a lot of information, by the way, I appreciate, but I forgot all about that. That shows that there's a lot of people out there that are learning this information and can confirm this information to be valid, by the way, and there's many that are still conversing to try to get to the next levels in this type of information. So a big shout out to her for informing me. Also the groups that are on, or different people that teach on TikTok. So there's groups on TikTok, there's different Facebook groups, Telegram. There may be forums out there to network with like-minded people. Of course, different YouTube channels, by the way, that are growing exponentially, that teach this and go over this type of information. So we have Charlie out of St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, big shout out to St. Louis in the house, in the building. Fragrance Place says, any new info on the black card, Dorsey? Well, I kind of answered that already. If you've been keeping up, Fragrance, I just saw that comment. I won't go into some of the details, but I kind of went over those things before I even saw your question in the chat, by the way, your statement. Roadrunner 07 says, Florida's in the house. Big shout out to Florida. This is also, if you guys want to shout out your state, your city, where you rep, where you from. And once again, big shout out to Texas, by the way. Throughout the years, YouTube, by the way, if you're a content creator, influencer, YouTube does tell us our analytics, like it breaks down how many male versus female subscribers you have. It'll give you a percentage, sometimes demographics, even of other countries. That, of course, the majority of my listeners are in the United States, but it has informed me. I have listeners, people from around the world, of course, that watch my channel. People have shared my channel, by the way. So, but big shout out to Texas. I've got support throughout the years from that state. Something about the state of Texas, by the way. So I'm going to read the rest of these comments and then I'm going to get ready to shut the video down. Don't forget to thumbs up, guys. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. If you like the work that I put out, you appreciate the work that I do, you want to show love, support down the road, where you want to see me talk about more powerful information, you know, we can get the Cash Apps up and support the channel, by the way, or super chat. I'll go over more powerful, heavy information. Just something to keep in mind. Says, Fragrance Place says, it's crazy how we are worth millions, but out here struggling. Yeah, that's true. I kind of went over how the cabal, mainly at the top, they're hiding a lot of this information, and they have select, sometimes some people, few have figured out different things, but remember, they hold the information, the ones, the gatekeepers at the top, but they do have minions or lower level people or lower level gatekeepers, underlinks sometimes, that have access to things. But we have to just work, strive to try to, you know, get there. Don't give up, by the way, this fight. I know it can be difficult, but the cabal has put us in this predicament. That's why I went over those documentaries to help provide education. That is very important. I went over a lot of powerful information. If you go back over this video, will help inform you. Sheffield Lawrence says, I did that 4 years ago and saw Belgium, Saudi Arabia, South Africa connected to my name and sin. Okay, awesome. So you must be talking about GMEI utility. Sheffield Lawrence says, yes, the SSN. Says, originally from NYC, now living in North Carolina. Okay, big shout out to New York and North Carolina in the house. Fragrance Place says, you ever converse some things over with Eon, Dorsey? No, formally I haven't. Now I actually have some people that I know that I believe are connected to Eon. Someone in particular I do know is knew Eon personally, was very close to Eon, is actually trying to get back in touch with Eon. Lady Beju, Lady Tech, by the way. So if anyone out there knows Eon personally, Lady Beju told me she's trying to get back in touch with Eon. I know his government name because I was subscribed to Legal Redress, his other channel. I remember when he first came out, he was under Brett Jones. So if anybody out there knows Brett Jones, Brett out there, Lady Beju, she informed me she's trying to get back in touch with you, Eon. A lot of people follow your work and love your work, by the way, and they just let me know. So anybody out there knows Eon 6 Degrees of Separation, you know, you can get in touch with me, shoot me an email. We can connect. Lady Beju, she stated she's trying to get back in touch. She stated she used to work with Eon, aka Legal Redress Commission. I think he has his other channel is back up, by the way, his older channel. Caitlin MC says, yeah, we should be redeeming the paychecks and lawful money, writing that on the back. So yeah, you know about that restrictive endorsement. It's like a form of a special deposit as well. There's also another way that instrument is used, by the way, with the IRS. So I have to save that for a masterclass, and that process came from an older Patriot guru from some years ago, by the way. Sheffield Lawrence says, nah, says, I held off the bank from repossessing my car over 2 years by doing a similar process, got the balance cut in half. Okay, excellent. Sheffield Lawrence says, what about the Vatican? Okay, not sure what you're referring to with that question about. The Vatican does play a role. Okay, I think when I went over some of that information, there's a connection. When I went over the birthing information earlier, how when a ship comes into a port, credit to Jordan Maxwell, that concept was called birthing. When a ship comes into a port, into water, it's the law of water, it's banking law. That's why the Statute of Liberty had to be put on water, because liberty is actually not freedom, what people think is permission. Jordan Maxwell explained that, but he said the American people, similar to the court system, how the word understand has two different meanings. You're taught in grade school the word understand means to comprehend, but in the court system, understand means you accept the concept, the contract. So similarly, how people think liberty is freedom, Jordan Maxwell said, no, liberty is not freedom. Liberty is mean you ask permission. So you see they're using deception, trickery. So there's a connection going back, all roads lead back to Rome, the Vatican. And my friend told me, who's very well studied, that study eschatology, he can speak multiple languages, linguistics, astrotheology. He said, in what part of the world do they still speak Latin? He informed me the Vatican. I said, wow, he taught me that. And I said, very impressive, because I heard one of the reasons they took Latin out the school system, out of the high schools, it used to be mandatory, was to dumb down the general public. That I heard that's why Latin was taken out the high schools, allegedly, intentionally, to dumb down the general public. But he said that's one part of the world where they still use Latin. It's at the Vatican, he stated to me. Fragrance Place says, went to the bank, talk about my trust account and the things I want to start doing. And when I start talking about the UCC codes and using negotiable instruments, manager was lost. Okay, now there's a certain technique I've good where there's some things I learned where I had a branch manager reveal something to me at one time that told me he didn't have access to something in particular. I won't really go into the details. I may have mentioned it before, but it leads to some things. I said, okay. So you got to learn how to, when you get it, become more advanced, more fluid in understanding these concepts, you know, you'll be able to explain things better. So you might be nervous at first, but I kind of brief them with things up front. I use a certain technique, but I don't share some of those techniques that I use because sometimes there's bad actors and people that don't have good intentions and will mess things up, by the way. And that's why I don't share certain information sometimes. I'll still hold a little bit back, even though I've given you guys very powerful information. I still have meticulously held certain key things back that I could have gone more in depth with, by the way, because there's gatekeepers, and I don't know. I don't have, I can't tell because YouTube is still public. I may sometime down the road do some Zoom meetings, just one day with you guys to connect some more. Sounds like that must be the reset that everybody's talking about. Yes, that's what it appears to be. I feel once you change your status, you should be able to deposit all those bonds into your trust they created on you. Yes, I hear a lot of stuff changes. Jonah Bay mentioned this a long time ago. I have a contact that set up a consultation with Jonah. He said, and during the consultation, and my source, what he did, the members of the group that we have went in together and paid him and another partner. We were all part of the same group. We would share information and put our money up to purchase material. And what he did is he typed up a list of questions and he had the notes and he printed them up. I have them somewhere, the questions that he asked, since Jonah is highly advanced, by the way. And there's others out there and there's other advanced processes, procedures, but he was one of the first to bring forth an advanced procedure when he debuted on USAVEL's high frequency radio in the early part of 2014, by the way. But I know he was under a different name. I won't say that name, from another source of contact that I had in a particular state. I won't say who told me intel. And because I heard of him before, that he was very well studied, but he was under a code name before he started using part of his government name at one time. Of course, he has an indigenous name too, but he's very well studied. And there's others out there, like I say, to reiterate. So yeah, he stated to my source when he had set up a private consultation, he said, when you correct your status, a lot of stuff changes for you. So I have some things, some loose ends I have to correct still. I have to come back and I'm in the process. And I said, I'll let you guys know if you guys don't hear from me in a while, I may be taking a break. I'm working on doing some of those things, by the way. Sheila Jazzy says, yes, Texas here. Texas in the building. All right. D Marie 333 says, hey, Dorsey, Check out Odyssey. I upload content there because it's not censored like here. Okay, I've heard of Odyssey before. I've heard of Odyssey library because there's so many independent social media platforms. I recommend you guys, just in case if you do have a big following or social media, if you are an influencer or a content creator, I recommend you should have a backup. Check out Rumble. It's another video web hosting platform. I heard Trump came out with one called Truth Social. Truth Social. I'm not on there yet. I have to work on it. There's another one. I am on Parler and Minds.com, by the way. And some of these are tied in with cryptocurrencies too, where you can make money, revenue you can build up by creating content. I still have to learn those concepts as I get acclimated. These are independent platforms, and some of these platforms are actually private and don't censor. MeWe is another, and they don't sell your information. I heard Google and Facebook sell your information. You know, Facebook Google just settled a lawsuit, and Facebook was currently in a lawsuit. By the way, that's why Facebook, remember, changed the name to Metaverse, by the way, because they were selling your data and your information. So you want to look into these other independent social media sites. Mike Lindell has a site called Frank Speech. You want to check out his site. Getter is like another independent version of Twitter. Check out Getter. You have Parler. It's still around. Parler's back up. They have their own servers now. Remember when Amazon, from the woke so-called riot thing, was trying to kick Parler off, and then they ended up getting their own independent servers. Also BitChute, similar to Rumble, another video web hosting platform. You have Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, has a platform called Brighteon.com. Check out Alex Jones's site, Band.video, or go to his site, Infowars, which will link you to the new URL. I can't remember because he gives other URLs since they try to censor. freeworldnews.tv, freeworldnews.tv, by the way. Check out Band.video. These are other platforms to get the real information, to get the truth. Don't trust MSNBC and CNN, by the way. Many times they don't go as in depth. They don't report on all the information, by the way. D. Marie 333 says, okay, taxation without representation at this point. Okay, I read your other earlier comment. Thank you for your comment, D. Marie. Lisa Julian says, Yepper, we should never give up. D. Marie says, Florida, thank God. Okay, Florida in the building. Somebody else from Florida, thumbs up. Appreciate you guys. L Bay says, Big Dorsey, what's popping? What's popping? It's all good. Well, guys, that's my time. The topic of this video I've gone over was called Birth Certificate, Hidden Meaning, Legal Concepts, History. I might do a part 2 down the road. I do have some other documents, but I wanted to cover this document. I felt this was important to kind of give another basis on how to tie things in, another angle, you know. So if you guys want to follow me on social media, keep in mind, I am obviously on YouTube. I also have a backup channel called Dorsey's Resource Channel 2. So in case something happens over here, which I had a video removed a while ago, that video is on my Rumble account, by the way. But if you go to my Facebook, I linked it after this video uploads and I get everything transferred over. I'm going to go to and transfer everything. But you go to my Facebook, you can check out that video they removed. It's actually like an audio. You won't be able to see the super chat, whatever, but it's on Rumble, by the way. So fortunately, I was able to get a copy of it because YouTube deleted it. Said they removed it on because of medical misinformation, whatever was said. But it could be other reasons. I went over some other stuff that I think they didn't find favorable. And because they're breaking the law, they're in violation. So that's why I said you want to get on these other platforms so they don't have all the power to just bully us like that. They're big tech bully giants, and Apple as well. You know, Amazon, we don't want them to have all the power. So get on the Rumbles, create a username, Band.video, Brighteon, Frank Speech, the alternatives to Getter. Getter is a website, Parler, Truth Social, by the way, Minds.com. Odyssey, Library, those are all the ones I could think of offhand. BitChute. So these big tech bullies can't just bully us out of existence. So we'll have our free speech, which is in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. And it's important we have freedom of speech. They're the ones that are breaking the law. They're the evil ones, because YouTube is part of the cabal. Even though I'm using this platform, but I use it to build traffic, and we can move traffic, transfer, exchange traffic to other platforms as well. So you guys have all the power. Appreciate you guys for supporting the channel. By the way, so if you want to follow me, it should be in the description box after the video uploads. Where to find me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. By the way, minds.com parlor, I went over that already. Real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. All the legends that have passed away, that have been in the movement and many different ways of life that's helped inspire people. The marathon will continue. Guys, stay woke out there. And also something I needed to get back to, I used to do when I first started off YouTube, I used to pray, and I may close out in a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for gathering us here together, Father God, in the name of Jesus. Thank you for sending your son in the name of your son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Father, I repent right now. Thank you for sending your son to wash away all our sins by his blood, Lord. I pray, Lord, that you protect people that are learning about this information, those of us researchers on the highways and byways, Lord, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, that we put on the whole armor of God, and that we were born for such a time as this, Father God. And we thank you for the many people that are waking up, that you have given us. You have not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind, Father God. I thank you right now, and I decree it. Thank you for your many blessings. I'm going to pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Ashe. Thank you, Lord. To each, blessings to you. Until next time, signing out. Dorsey's Resource. Take care. Deuces. Peace. All right. Close that out. Right.